Okay, hi. It's Sunday morning. This is September 25th. So, just a little review of week 4, and then we'll talk briefly about week 5. Um, week 4 was about budgeting, about cash budgets, operating budgets, and capital budgets, and how they're interrelated. Um, We also talked obviously a lot about the Sojourner budgets and uh, the little story that went along with that in our text. Um, I guess three main points there, just to review. I think we did a good job of trying to find the story behind the numbers, and that's really what you want to try to do, right? Whenever you look at financial information, the goal is to figure out what's really happening in the organization, not just to identify how much each category has gone up or down, but rather to get a sense of what those numbers mean in terms of the operational capacity of the organization and its ability to maximize mission. And I think we talked about that pretty well. The second theme that we kind of touched on was this trade-off between debt and liquidity. They're obviously sort of related there, because you can maintain your liquidity by taking on debt, right, to get a loan instead of paying for something with cash. But as you pay stuff with cash, your liquidity goes down, but your debt stays down. And so there's sort of a yin and a yang here between debt and liquidity. You want liquidity so you can pay your bills and have operational flexibility, but you don't want debt that you can't afford. Two parts there, right? One is that you may not be able to afford to repay the loan that you get, and also many funders, particularly the government, will not fund interest cost. They don't see it as an allowable expense, and so whenever you think about taking on a loan, make sure that your funders that you have some source of revenue that will allow you to pay the interest cost. Okay, and then thirdly, we were talking a little bit about the mix of programs so that you can remain financially sustainable, but also maximize your mission. And that theme goes back to thinking about why nonprofits exist. And there are those theories of market failure, and essentially nonprofits typically spring up and step in where the private sector or the government won't or don't have the ability to provide the service or the public good that the nonprofit is trying to provide. And so it stands to reason that a nonprofit will have trouble finding revenues in order to fund the public good that the public sector or the for-profit sector or the government isn't willing to fund. And so a logical response to that situation is for the nonprofit to find an area where they can provide services and run a profit so that they can use those profits or surpluses to cross-subsidize and fund the mission-based program that is underfunded. Okay, so that's just a little bit about week 4. I appreciate your efforts in the discussion forums to keep them going. Hopefully the forums get a little livelier as we move through the course. In week 5, there are 3 chapters, right, in the Weichert book. One chapter focuses on liquidity and cash flow. A second chapter focuses a little bit on microeconomics and the notion of cost and cost analysis so that you can fully understand the cost of the goods that you're providing and the cost of increasing the amount of goods that you're supplying. And then lastly, there's a chapter about accounting and recording information. And that goes into cash versus accrual accounting. And also is a good lead in then to the case study this week where the nonprofit is surprised by a funder who is 80% of their funding, but wants to cut that 80% funding in half in what they say is the following period. So through the case study, I hope we'll be able to discuss some of these themes about liquidity and debt, and the pricing of the services you're providing, and lastly, how you are recording your financial information in cash or accrual accounting. All right, if you have any questions, just give a ring, and I'll also be grading your papers tomorrow and have them back to you hopefully by tomorrow night or Tuesday at the latest. Okay? All right, thanks, and I don't know, we'll see you online. Take care.